Hello and welcome to another battle report. This one features two 1500 point lists, my Eldar versus Tyranid. My opponent's list is a little bit fluffier. It features the Endless Tide, the one where you can recycle your gaunts formation. He also had a Hive Crone, Trigon Prime, a pair of Malanthropes, Hive Tyrant with a Hive Guard, some warriors, and I think a Tyrant Guard. I'm not sure what those guys are called. The ones that automatically pass through Lookout Sir. My list has a pair of Warwalkers with Bright Lances, a pair of Hornets with Pulse Lasers, 2 units of 7 Spiders, Wraith Knight, 3 Serpents with Dire Avengers, and a Naked Autarch, which is quickly becoming one of my more favorite HQs since it allows me to put a lot more points on the field. I've been working on modifying the BAO scenarios, just tweaking them a little bit. For Emperor's Will, which tends to be pretty drawish on the primary, I increased the number of tactical objective markers and changed the way some of the objectives are written. You can see hold either objective 1, hold either objective 2. I changed some of the stuff that has to do with how you count scoring units. Specifically only units that are on the table and currently capable of scoring, and also that independent characters don't count as a separate scoring unit when they're joined to another unit. Alright, here we are after deployment. I was able to infiltrate my 3 Wave Serpents due to my Warlord trait, so all I had to do is put my Knight on the board and then counter deploy as hard as I could. My objectives were all on the left side of the board, though, so I knew I had to scoot over to the right to get his later on. Emperor's Will, and then 4 objectives based on my modifications. He put his Hive Crone on the board to start, and warriors on this end. Then towards the middle, he stuffed almost all of the gaunts into the middle of the board here. I think there's one more unit of gaunts on the far left, mix of Hormagaunts, Termagaunts, and there's a pair of Hive Guard there as well. Then on the far left is the Hive Tyrant with one of his bodyguards and the 2 Malanthropes. Oh, I guess there are actually 2 units of gaunts on this end as well. Alright, here we are at the end of game turn 1. I decided to film just entire game turns. 2 Wave Serpents was all it took to take out the Hive Crone, so the Wave Serpent that's way far up there actually got a chance to go flat out. My objectives were to hold either Objective 1 and either Objective 2. His were to hold either Objective 1 and to destroy a unit, which he failed to do despite a lot of attacks from the warriors. He got 1 pen with a shaken result and only took 2 hull points off the vehicle altogether. Elsewhere on the board, my Wraith Knight is what I used to hold the Objective 1 as I moved as far away as I could from the advancing horde of bugs. Here we are at the bottom of game turn 2. 1 unit of spiders failed to come in, everything else did, and I managed to very quickly turn this into a hammer and anvil deployment style game, which definitely favors my army versus his. My turn 2 objectives were to have a scoring unit at least partially within his deployment zone, and to have more scoring units in my deployment zone than he had. I managed to earn both of mine. His objectives were to hold either Objective 2 and to destroy a unit again, and he once again failed to destroy a unit, despite trying very hard. He managed to cast Paroxysm on my Wraith Knight, and I forgot to mention that in turn 1 he had a Perils and forgot Warp Blast. And that's all that happened on this end of the board, with everything running after me. Here on this end of the board, there's quite a bit of action. I failed to kill the Gaunts. The Trigon Prime deep struck in there, the Rippers deep struck in over there, and the Warrior shot at the Dire Avengers and then died to a rend on Overwatch. Alright, here we are at the end of game turn 3. You can see the Trigon Prime is gone. The Termagaunts managed to get into close combat with my Dire Avengers. It was drawn combat, actually. Ironic. His objectives were to hold either Objective 2 and have a scoring unit, at least partially within my deployment zone. He did. Mine were to hold either Objective 1 and either Objective 2. I only managed to hold Objective 2, so at the end of the turn we were tied on the secondary. Those 10 gaunts right there reduced my Warp Spiders, I think, to just 2 guys. And over here the Hormagaunts finally caught up with my Wraith Knight and locked him in close combat because they were fearless due to the Malanthrope's synapse range. I managed to squish 2 bugs, and in shooting before I got locked in close combat, I managed to kill the Tyrant guard, a little bodyguard for the Hive Tyrant. This is the end of game turn 4. Reserves came in automatically for me. He recycled 3 units of gaunts, one of which came out of the Trigon hole, and 2 walked on the board edge. One of which shot at my Wave Serpent there and failed to destroy it. It was one of his objectives, was to destroy a unit, and despite 3 good opportunities, he failed to do so. His other objective was to have a scoring unit in my backfield, at least partially, and my objectives were to hold Objective 2 and have a scoring unit, at least partially, in his deployment zone. Over here, some good shooting from the Hornets and the Warwalkers managed to kill one of the Malanthropes, which took the Hormagaunts out of synapse range, so I won the combat. They failed their morale checks. I overran 1 unit, consolidated away. So I continued to play chicken. Over here, despite 30 shots at the Wave Serpent, only managed 2 6s, and I jinked both with 4-ups. Here's another funny story. These gaunts automatically regrouped because they were within synapse range. They assaulted the 2 warp spiders, so there were just 2 there. Managed to only do 8 wounds, and I made 7 saves, so I only lost 1 guy. It's pretty remarkable. These guys were absolutely decimated with paroxysm and also just tons and tons of shooting from different spots, so I only had a pair left, but they made their morale check. This is the end of turn 5 and the end of the game due to time. The die roll indicated that there would have been a turn 6, which would have been very interesting. His gaunts recycled again. The gaunts that were still on the board shot at and assaulted the warp spiders, but they managed to hold out long enough to contest this Emperor's Will objective here on this end of the board. I had tank shocked another unit with my Wave Serpent, and they made their morale check, which was remarkable. Let's see, so over here on this end of the board was really where it was interesting. I had sent one of my Wave Serpents flat out and landed it pretty much right on the objective there. The Wraith Knight had shot and assaulted the Ripper Swarms, which were the last objective secured units that he had, and then consolidated more towards the objective. So the idea was that he would have to first crack the Wave Serpent and then be able to assault and destroy the unit inside of it, which had the Autarch in it, in order to get me off of that objective. He did not wreck the Wave Serpent with shooting, and then in the assault he managed to get pens and blow it up. I lost 3 Dire Avengers, but we were not shaken, we didn't have to snapfire, and we didn't end up failing our morale check. So had the game ended, I would have won the primary. The secondary was tied, and then I would have taken the tertiary just because of First Blood, because we both had Linebreaker, and neither of us had Slay the Warlord.